Hello, Strasbourgians.
Welcome everybody, sziasztok!
Hello everybody.
Good morning.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, friends, colleagues and fellow Europeans.
First, I would like to say nice to meet you all, and it's an honor to be here to be speaking in front of everyone.
Alors que nous nous dirigeons vers une période
As we enter a time of uncertainty and doubts for the future, well, compromise will be an important value. Compromise is what made Europe as prosperous as it is today.
Impoverished immigrants, sustainable growth, and the Brexit situation are only a few of the hurdles the European Union is facing today. But we believe that, should we move forward as one through the EU's principles of solidarity and tolerance, we will be powerful enough to overcome.
Citizens are missing out on the opportunity that we have of choosing our representatives, whose decisions determine our future. People take for granted what we have achieved in the past. Democracy, human rights, freedom. We need to take a stand. Our voices should be heard. We need to learn to talk and listen. We have the opportunity to choose our own direction, and to go forward, we need to walk. The first step is voting. The only thing left is the future. Let's make it beautiful.
Thank you.
I was born in France. I grew up in Paris, but I am a German member, so I'm a real European.
Als Vizepräsidentin des Parlaments bin ich
As Vice President of the European Parliament, I lead the ICT working group, Information and Communications Technology, and I am in the working group on information. This is very interesting, and I can represent the President in South America. So please, the floor is yours now. Ask me your questions and I'll do my best to answer them.
My name is Daniel and I am from Riga, Latvia. And I would ask, can we say that joining to the European Union is useful if the living quality and economical level in each country is different? Thank you.
Yes, of course it's useful. And your country has benefited a great deal from being a member of the European Union, because the economic strength of a member state of the European Union grows. Obviously at different levels, but it is a good thing, and it does bring quality of life to the citizens. There is a major problem we've seen with different product qualities in different member states, and we've set in motion legislation. This is something my committee did, saying it was not acceptable. All citizens have the same rights to the same high quality of products. You can't have packaging containing different things according to whether you're in Germany or Latvia or Poland or whatever. You can't have different quality products sold in different countries. We've said that's not acceptable. The companies said, well, actually expectations of citizens are different. Well, that may be the case, but you would have to indicate that on the packaging. You would have to say, this is product of brand X or Y for market X or Y. So the citizen knows, well, it's not the same product as the one I buy in France or Germany. And then as a citizen, you can say, well, I want this or I don't want it. But it's not acceptable to have the same packaging indicating the same product but containing a different product. There are very popular biscuits sold in France, the Petit Beurre, 100% butter, and we've seen the same packaging being used in Poland to sell products without a single gram of butter in them, and we've said no, that's not acceptable. And we've produced a law to stop that. We've said this is not acceptable. We want to make sure that all citizens have the same rights, the same quality of products, and we don't accept these differences that the companies are producing. And there is to be a decision on this in a couple of weeks, and this will take effect in all member states of the European Union, and I think this is a good thing there we're doing for citizens.
Hallo, ich heiße Julian Funk.
I'm Julian Funk, I'm from Germany, and I would like to ask the Vice President and the member of the Committee on Consumer Protection about data protection, particularly with regard to the methods used by Facebook and other social media giants.
Ja, also ich bin eine absolute Anhängerin der
Well, I'm very much in favor of the data protection regulation, the general data protection regulation that we adopted, which protects personal data of consumers and users of social media. And the legislation we have created is, of course, applicable to Facebook and others. And this is being looked at by the data protection supervisor and the commissioner. They're looking at the rules. I was the Parliament's rapporteur on something we'll be adopting the week after next in Parliament, which is contracts for digital content, and making sure that we have data protection and that consumers can take back their data, and also enabling possibilities of penalties in the EU if the companies don't keep to the rules, and if the data protection provisions aren't kept to. That would mean that a contract could be automatically cancelled by one of the parties, i.e. one-sidedly. This is something we have brought into the legislation, so that if, when it comes to Facebook, Amazon or another platform, if Facebook, for example, misuses your data, you have the rights. And I was very glad to win the day on one of the points. Originally, the legislation was only to be valid for certain digital content which was independent of devices. For example, phone apps. It wouldn't have been valid for pre-installed apps. But one thing I achieved was that the so-called free apps, i.e. free if you provide data, would also come within the scope of the legislation. Originally, the scope only covered the apps and digital contents and services that you paid for. So I think we've created very good legislation, and I hope that Parliament will be able to vote for this the week after next.
Yeah, Daniel Sheehy, Ireland. I was wondering whether the Vice President could tell me whether the rise of Euroscepticism in the upcoming European elections will lead to further cooperation between the S&D group in the European Parliament and the European People's Party group in the European Parliament.
Also im Europäischen Parlament.
Well, in the European Parliament, we're used to forming different majorities according to the subject, and we'll continue to do that. So we're not going to get into a coalition agreement or treaty with the EPP. We'll look at whom we can work with in particular areas, and in questions of citizens' rights, it's easier to work with the Liberals than the EPP. In terms of climate care, it's easier for us to work with the Greens than the EPP. And there are certain areas and policies where we can't do anything, for example, on economic issues without the EPP. And on those issues, we will work with the EPP. So we're a different parliament to national parliaments where there are fixed coalitions. We always look to where we can organize majorities. Sometimes we can form majorities with one part of the EPP and not with another part. It does vary a great deal.
I'm Alexandra Mitrova from Bulgaria. Thank you for sharing your reflections and solutions concerning the current issues you've been facing. I would like to ask you, as the Vice President of the European Parliament, as a European citizen and as a human being, what would you like to see changed in Europe? Thank you.
Da hätte ich einen ganzen Strauß.
Well, I could say an awful lot. I would like Europe to be a real Europe of the citizens, where we're all equally treated and where there is solidarity which takes pride of place, not just here but in the Council, and that there's often a problem in that area, so I would like more to be done on that front. And in the Council, where decisions have to be taken unanimously, I'd like this to be changed to majority decisions so that we're able to act, because very often what happens is that you have a blocking government stopping policy being made, and then citizens reproach us that nothing is being done in certain areas of policy. For example, in the area of tax justice, tax fairness, it would be very useful to have majority voting so that something could actually be done.
The issues we've identified surrounding this topic are the lack of education for EU citizens about climate change and topics such as that, lack of investment into the green business sector, and a lack of investment for people and businesses to transition into sustainable energies. We also realise that there is a lack of aid given to countries that are on track to fail their environmental aspirations. In regards to education in our EU member states, we strongly recommend the implementation of environment modules in schools in existing subjects to educate and inform students across all member states about the danger, causes and solutions to climate change. We wish to provide grants to schools, ecology and environmental projects. We also want to make citizens aware via a mass media campaign regarding climate change.
The first proposal is regarding an independent body. This proposal suggests establishing an independent body in order to keep an unbiased manner in extreme cases where privacy and security is at stake. This body would have 28 members, one from each EU country member, in order to have balance. Our next proposal stems from the fact that people ignore and hide problems rather than solving them at the root of the problem. An example would be sending people to jail. Therefore, education is imperative and a big factor to how people think, so it should be done in an unbiased manner with a common EU curriculum. We as EU should ensure that all countries receive unbiased teachers and teaching. The following proposal is about advocating that a clause B to the previous proposal would be creating a common judiciary law around EU in order to assure that human rights aren't violated. For example, if country A sends a citizen of country B back to their country, they must be sure that they're sending the citizen back to reasonable and similar conditions. The following proposal is about advocating that the punishment for breaches of human rights should be cutting investment money in the future instead of taking their present money. Therefore, instead of a country being able to reject a request of a fine, they're forced to accept their breach of or their cutting of investment money in the future. Lastly, we have a proposal regarding independent medias. We have as a proposal that every country in the EU should have independent medias instead of government-controlled medias. Having government-controlled news, for example, is a way that the government gets the opportunity to create a specific mindset for the society. By having independent medias, it allows citizens to choose what they want to listen to without having to listen to biased and maybe even twisted information. Thank you.
So I'll start with the first proposition, which is advertising campaigns. Currently, there are already active advertising campaigns by the EU, but after discussions, we understood that these campaigns are not reaching people our age, they are not effective, and most of the people in our group only learned of the elections prior to this event, well, in preparation for this event. So our suggestion is focusing on making relatable advertisements that are interactive and creative and include artists and young people that we can relate to and understand, because we, the youth, we gather information from different sources. We would also like to focus on maybe and propose that advertising happen through entrepreneurs, because those are the people we listen to. Of course, this raises the question about political correctness, but in this case, we would want to say that modern problems require modern solutions. The second argument we want to make is raising awareness in schools, as most people feel uneducated and not prepared to make an educated vote, which would mean making a subject on current problems, on EU, on voting. Of course, we are aware of the technical difficulties this would make, and that this may introduce bias, but that's why the subject should be focused on informating about EU, what EU does for us, how voting works and why it's important, and helping everyone make an educated choice. Thank you.
We think that globalisation, that as it's now, in this moment, is maybe not the best way to continue it. Of course, we are not rejecting it at all, but I think, and our whole committee think, that there are a great amount of issues that have to have solutions before we can get a step toward. Okay. Also, there are some risks on globalization. For example, standards in different continentals, for example, in Asia and Europe, are not exactly the same. Okay. Then we have topic number 2, that was solidarity. Solidarity is one of the main basics of the EU, but nowadays we have to talk it again. For example, immigration is a quite problematic topic at the moment, and there are a lot of discussion that have to be done. So that's one main issue why we have to lift up and show you that solidarity is important in the future.
In this resolution, we as the EU would like to lobby governments outside the EU to adopt the following proposals, as well as encourage and the discussion of a possible international immigration system. Then my next subheading is education, as people coming from different cultures and societies and people already in that society need to be educated and vice versa. So we'd like to encourage governments to pay teachers to teach migrants who need to learn the native language. We recommend that there is one teacher per every 100 migrants who need to learn the language per province, and at least one teacher per province minimum. We are encouraged as well as this separate classes by civil servants with the same ratios about basic country values and laws, which are up to every country to decide on. We also would have voluntary classes for locals funded by the EU to teach about migrant struggles and migration in general. Following this point, we would like to set up a social media campaign to dispel fake news about migration ran by EU sub-body. We would also like to encourage member states to implement a section of pre-existing well-being subjects across the EU to explain why and how migration occurs.
We conclude that in some countries working age is too high and they are disabled to start to work and get experience. And one more problem was just missing working places. Some of students said that they tried to find a job and there are just no working places. And every country is looking for a solution just for them. But we need to start to think global, to think about Europe, and to share successful experience all around. Our solutions after discussion was to share experience first of all, increase level of education in low developed countries, and one more solution where to volunteers. So you can get experience by volunteering. Also, we talked about problem that students after finishing university are going abroad, and this is really bad for small country economy. And if we are talking about motivation, yes, some of students, some of youth don't have just motivation. And please find motivation in yourself and go forward. Thank you.